Back.
Absolutely. All right, all right. Hi, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to this little quote unquote back to school summer session of Signalbase in combination with Jetpack. Barry, thanks a lot for having the time this summer to, share your brains with us.
Thank you. Yeah. Um, it's funny how we got back in the same thing because we know each other from when we were still doing growth hacking a couple of years ago, right? And now we're both in Signals.
Absolutely. The trends
Yeah.
never die, as I
Thank
may
you.
say.
Thank you for doing this together. Yeah. Fun. Summer school.
Absolutely. Barry, would you mind, by the way, for the people who don't know you, to share a little bit more about yourself and
Yes.
why they should listen to you today?
Yeah. I Barry, I'm from the Netherlands, but I live in Portugal for 3 years. I have a background in marketing, spent almost 10 years in marketing. But like 3 years ago, when this was coming up and Clay became big, I pivoted more towards go-to-market engineering and I started helping my clients with that. I became one of the first 100 Clay partners. I started freelancing, and now I'm with a small team of like three people, go-to-market engineers, helping sales-led B2B teams with. It's either more traditional outbound, which still has its place, I think, if your market is big enough. So we do that, or we help companies really with implementing signal-based selling, and that's usually more. So I think I'm going to share something about my experience today. I think that's most interesting because I have been helping sales-led teams with like longer sales cycles implement signal-based selling, and I think that's what most valuable. Like just some, I'm just going to share some stuff that I learned. I'm not gonna. I think that's most unique about my story. So yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I would give 2 to 3 more minutes for people to join us, and then we can get it going. I was just checking whether the event is live. We are, so everything is good.
nice.
While we're waiting, actually, let's just start with something simpler. How are you guys experiencing the summer? Barry, how are you experiencing the summer? Is it slow for you? Is
For
it
me,
fast?
it's quite busy. By the way, should we, if people have questions, just drop them, right? And
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
and yeah, and maybe one final thing for the intro. I think what people should walk away with is how to catch people this summer that are in your market. I would maybe that's my part, and your part is how to actually get them talking to you. Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I
yeah,
feel like there is another question, right? Which is like what people need to do on their signal based engine in order to work
yeah,
properly.
yeah,
Which is sick because for folks that are about to watch the recording later, like there are some also cheat sheets that we're going to share.
yeah,
So yeah,
yes, yeah. I have a. If you stay in, no, if you stay into the end, if you just follow along and you ask me for it, or I will just send it out. We have a cheat sheet, and I have like the framework that I use to build clients. Sort of a signal framework that I use to before we start building, gather all the input and what do we actually want. Yeah.
absolutely. All right. I
So
think
how's your summer?
it's been honestly super tiring because it feels like some people are going on vacations while other are just coming back. So there is
Yeah.
this nice balance. The most important thing actually is that I feel like many people believe that during the summer they need to stop their cold market efforts. While even if there is not much of ROI, I feel like
Mhm.
the brand authority that you can leverage from it just because of everything else is gone so quiet. For
Yeah.
instance, your competitors, you can earn quite a lot of authority, even just by commenting. By the way, I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
someone today that said like, "Hey, cool comment, man. Like, shall we book on a call?" Of course. Why
Yeah.
the hell not?
Also, it depends on. I used to. I have more international clients now, and the Netherlands, I feel like, is more strict on summer holiday. Everyone's gone, but in like the US, UK, it's less. As stuff just keeps moving, and people never take a break.
Yeah, for sure. For the people that are watching maybe the recording, drop in the comments how the summer is going for you. We would love to see if you maybe have some cool growth tactics or things like this, which can be leveraged further down the line. I think it's fine if we move further down line. Probably there are going to be
Let's
people
go.
who are joining up. So yeah, let's just go in. I feel like ultimately your summer is inevitably going to be extremely slow if you're sending stuff like this. By the way, shout out to my boy Spencer for uh, you know trashing such vague response, and it's really indicating the fact that people nowadays want to be led with relevance. And within this session, we will also try to help you guys to form and answer the question within each one of your messages: why me? Why right now? Right? Because if it's just genetic, the person on the other side can definitely acknowledge the fact that you are sending it to many other people. And as we're talking about relevance, right? If you're a business owner or a head of marketing, or chief growth officer, let's say, you need to be asking those three questions. And it's something that I also advise a lot when I'm talking with other vendors that are building their, targeting layers or whatever. So do you still have like a product market fit? I think that's a good question to have because of the fact that AI is right now moving the workflows where you originally started your business to somewhere else, and it gets commoditized so fast. So we need to tap into a new market most of the time. The question that should follow along is, okay, this is the right audience. Are we adding value within every message that we have? And lastly, is there a true reason for us to reach out? Because in case you check this, the reason was missing. That being said, in case you wonder if, hey, but Georgia, everyone is going on vacation, I actually would like to call it a camp because of the fact that within the summer itself, we sourced much more than 500 hiring signals. And just by analyzing those 500, we managed to analyze different tiers across what's nested inside for September. And you can see there's stuff like tech stacks, there are things like location fields, there are things like naming a leader who is responsible for something that is about to happen or it's currently happening and people need some help during the summer. And then it goes down into the whole golden or jam-packed of value hiring signal that you can explore further down the line and really discover some nitty-gritty stuff that can help you to stand out. So the lesson here is to initially keep on hunting for new leads because they are moving. And the fact that it's summer doesn't mean that everyone stops working, right?
Yes. So let's get to my framework, or I think I just wanted to share some learnings that I had and try to package it into sort of a five step program or actionable list to use this summer to start with a signal-based engine. And what I wanted to start off with is what I often see going wrong, to set the stage sort of, is that because there's so many signals, everything is a signal now. So there's intent data, there is hiring data, there's technological data, there's social listening. There's so many tools, so much data, but there's not really, and it's also really new, but there's not really a clear description or framework. And I think that's one thing I wanted to share here. And stuff gets confused, fit and timing. Like you can have, and sometimes companies that want to start with this don't even have their ICP on paper. And then you want to have the conversation about signals. That's hard. We will get into that a little bit later. So where fit is just something like, okay, a company has 200 employees, they're using this tech stack, their maturity is this, where timing is more around movement. And if you have the two things, so movement within an account, motion, they're going somewhere, they are spending their money somewhere, they're interested in some things, and you can see that from the outside, but without a clear description and without a clear separation of these two, you can't really build it. And then often what I see going wrong is I have these conversations with sales and they say, okay, let's do this signal, this signal, this signal. And then we pump it into Slack. And then it's just like signal, 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 but they don't do anything with it. And I think that's the final point Like if they're not actionable, so sales needs to be on board. They need to tell you like, what do you want to know about an account? What do you really need to make that good entry? Like you gave the example. Like what's your reason to reach out? And so what context do you need? What does it need to look like in where you work? And then you can sort of build from that. And I think that's the next slide. So this is the engine, as I call it, the signal-based engine, as we usually walk through these steps with the client. So the 5 steps above are to get the output would be a clear, in these cases, like I said, typically the signal-based engines that we build right now are for companies that are more doing sort of ABM style selling, longer sales cycles, more complex. They have an established sales team. Their sales team sort of knows who they need to target, but they don't have a lot of intel. I often sell myself as sort of the guy in the chair. You know, James Bond has Q, and Ethan Hunt has the guy in the van. You know, doing the research, because the sales team needs that to work. And so the first thing is separating fit from timing, and I have a slide for that. Or maybe just start it. Okay, so above are the 5 steps, and below that I will walk you through it in a bit. And then we have below who does the work. So there's 2 things. I think the beginning should always be done by a human. So the strategy, who do we want to target? Talking to sales, what do we need? What is the definition of a good fit account? And what usually when a company comes to us, what is happening internally? You can't let AI do that. And also designing the output. So what does sales, let's say sales want to start with signals, okay, but what do they actually want to read? What doesn't, I call it usually an account brief. The deliverable we get for a client is an account brief. So, okay, you need to reach out to this account because these are the people. And then in the middle, there's yeah, sure.
Yeah, sorry, Barry, one question, man. Who should start implementing this? When do you say, okay, you're ready for this?
Yeah, so if you have a clear ICP, so you have a sales team that's ready. Like for me, usually I want to have companies that sort of middle maturity. So you have a CRM, you have a sales team, you have had conversations with people, you have a product, you have sort of a product market fit. So you have had some results, but you can just improve. So your sales team is still working the old-fashioned way. Let's upload a list to HubSpot and assign it to people and then start calling. Or you could upload the list to Clay or whatever, or Cloud Code. Build a framework around let's prioritize these accounts, because that's what it's about, account prioritization. But you're just using more data to do it. So what does that look like? And that's usually in the beginning where I can share it after. So step 1 is actually putting these things on paper. And I can share the framework that we use to put this on paper and get all the input from client later. Mm-hmm. But one thing that we basically build in the beginning is a signal framework. So it's just like a sort of a spreadsheet with, okay, you want to attract these companies. So that's fit. Fit is just static data that you can pull from any database, or you can enrich with Clay. So it's like firmographics, technographics, team composition. It's stuff that's static, and then we add timing on top of that, and that's signals. So that's what you do with Signalbase and other tools. It's sort of zooming into an account and based on sort of as a detective and looking at by putting the things together. You know this meme of this guy in front of the board that's like being with all the pictures and the wires and that. So what do we see with an account, or what's like the winning combination? So for example, and this is where I will go back to the overview. Like I said, I say below, work backwards. So one of these ways to work backwards is an example of one client said, okay, hey, we want to get started with signal-based selling. And they had a great example of recently this company came to us. It's a great example of the companies we want to have. So I used that, and with AI, We reversed engineers. Okay, what are the things that were true at the moment that clients knocked on your door? And it was very clear that they were hiring in some sort of direction. They had funding. They were using sort of language. Uh, they were using language in their job openings, and they had a certain maturity in their team. And those four things combined made it that they were the perfect company. And that's combining fit with timing. And then we put that in a framework, and that's where we start building. Um, and then usually that building, so you have this framework, and then you start with a list of companies, and you need to combine all those signals to prioritize your companies, and we usually do that in Clay.
What are
But
some of the most common mistakes that you've seen teams do when they try to implement it on their own?
So just like I said, not really thinking about it, and just implementing some signals or starting with a tool. Or okay, let's start with website visits and call all those people that visit our website. It's a really basic one, but so it's a lack of a plan or a strategy. So if you the first step is separating fit from timing or getting an actual framework, and then the second one is maybe a good example. So finding where the evidence lives, because there are now so many. So if you know, okay, I want to know about this company, I want to know about my target account list to prioritize, if they are hiring, if they had funding, and if they use this language on the website. You pick the right tools for that, so you find where the evidence lives, and that can be tools like Signalbase, Clay. I think this one we're going to share the cheat sheet for, like all the signals and where you can find them. But one example for I was working with a company that helps huge enterprises like Coca-Cola or that sort of size with sustainability. And we found out that the French government has an API to find out how a company is performing, and so we pulled that data into Clay. So that's an example how you can get creative or find custom signals, I would say.
Yeah.
So if you have that, and that's usually again what we built in Clay, getting the framework, so knowing what you want to track, combining it and gathering the data, and then the third step is turning it into a decision, or what the system does is just score and rank. So you could have a list of, let's say if you have 100 accounts, and based on the signals that you picked, sort of the combination of 3 or 4, they can get 100 points.
Right. How do you define the scoring system? That's a question that many marketing leaders had previously asked me, at least for that direction. What is like the mental model there? How do you weight out different signals?
Yeah, it really depends on the client, but usually we just work backwards from like 100 points. And then, for example, if you have 4 signals, they can each get 25 points, or maybe some are weighted higher than the others. It's not that difficult. If you know, like, okay, an account can have a total score of 100, and I have these data points, then which ones should we weigh higher or less high? And that's also, I think, the final step is to tune it, and one of the parts is tuning the scoring. And then the output is a really important. So you can score all you want all day long, but if you don't have a clear definition of what the output should look like, and that's another example of starting like working backwards. So what we did also with the client was one of the first things we did was designing an account brief. So this is an example of I can't really use client examples, so I just used a fictive example of something that I would build for myself. But these were the exact ingredients of a good account brief. So you have the scoring, like this is an account that was scored 87 points, so you need to act now. There's a summary of why now. So why should you reach out now? And this is also something your salespeople can use in their outreach. Whether you're gonna just send a message or even invite them for an event or share some content, or what is it that you do? This is what you can use in your outreach. A little bit about the fit. So why is this company a fit, and why did it actually score this high? So which signals fired, and who to talk to. So your stakeholders. Who should you reach out to?
Yeah.
And maybe
Is this fully automated by the time you make it, or
This
just
is all. This is
compounding?
all. Yeah, this is all clay. This will
Okay.
be all the output in clay. It's all the columns in clay, and then you use one AI prompt to gather it all.
Okay. Good stuff.
So before, if for example, if a company scores above 80, then we also find the stakeholders with clay, and then we use usually like Anthropic. Cloud is usually better at this, gathering all because it's sometimes like a massive prompt and a ton of data. So sometimes it's even harder. You get too much data and the account brief is too elaborate, and you want to strip that down to only the core things. And so this is a really important thing to do in the beginning. Sit down with sales or look at past customers, like what was true, build from that, and then sit down with sales. Like what do you want to actually read?
Sure.
What do you need to what ammunition do you need to reach out? And then where do you want to have this push to Slack, or do you want to have this in HubSpot or your CRM? That's depending on the sales team.
Which part of this takes the most time to sharpen up?
I would say the whole back and forth with sales about what to actually track,
Yeah.
and then building it is not that it's not that hard. The prompting for the actual briefs is hard, but then um, actually getting to a final version, tuning it is hard, and
Right.
then what's actually hard is getting the meeting. But we will talk about that in a minute because this
Sure.
is all nice, but and I think you can add there because usually we more help with the technical stuff on the back end, like this, getting the data, but then they need to do it. So that's also hard. Is there anything I would add here? Yeah, but I think we've covered most of it.
Solid.
If
Solid.
there are no
So just
questions.
just as a summary, so start working from the back, right? Like analyze how the sales team, what type of ammo do they need, right?
Yes,
Then go back into talking to absolutely everything and reverse engineer the signals based on also like the CRM.
exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah,
then lastly, map out the entire company profile in order to know
yeah,
the relevance.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and sometimes tune it can be plumbing or prompting. And what I mean with that, if you have all this data in clay and sometimes the output is not that good, the client will say to us like, "Oh, this account brief is shit. Maybe you don't have quality data, but it's just a small tweak in the prompt." So it can be either if the output is not good, it can be data quality or it can be prompting problems, just extracting the right things.
Do you mind sharing a use case here where you switched up the simple prompt in order to?
Yeah, this is also the client in the sustainability. We had all the data. We pulled this data from the France government and stuff. It was super cool, super beautiful build. But then the brief was just like because we didn't prompt Claude right. It was just like a couple of bullet points with very poor info, and it was like they said like, "Well, is this it?" And then it was just a tweak of the prompt that was needed to get the right data.
Sick.
And then it's like, and then it was too big, and then it's too small, and then you find the middle, and then it's good.
I gotta iterate it as much as possible
Yeah.
for the team, right? Awesome.
Yeah. So that's and I can share again. I think we can share the cheat sheet with all the like type of fit and types of signals from hiring to social to funding to merger acquisition. Just sort of a menu card to pick from. And I will share, if people want it, the framework we use to get started. Basically, put it on paper and know what you're building.
Absolutely. No, that sounds good.
Is there anything else? Yeah, so I think back to you. So if you have this in September, how do you get them talking to you?
And you see, that's by far the most annoying part too, because I feel like people are just fed up with all of the AI slop, right?
Yeah.
Like that is going on. And it actually comes down to your brief. If the brief is not good enough, then the message is not good enough. And the message itself and the brief is turned on by the different signals, right? So many people know about the engagement signals or the website signals, but how do you actually pull them into three bigger categories. And for me, those are filling up into three buckets. Emergency signals. This is whenever a big player on the market have shared something and everyone is jumping on it, right? Because it generates all of the different eyeballs. Then we have evergreen signals, like if someone is joining this webinar, right? And then if they raise funding or if they have job change, that's like growth related um, initially signals. And so was with engagement, right? It's kind of like an evergreen thing because everyone will comment, everyone will raise, everyone will do this and that. And lastly, you have the so-called custom signals, like the sustainability API thing, right? Which is
Yeah.
crazy good use case. In my case, we support other vendors with data or teams with data if they want to boost the refreshment process of their agent. So in that case, there is someone who posted about it, and I went straight up
What
into
do
it.
what do you think about CRM signals? Like you can combine all these things like hiring, external factors, intent, social listening, and
Yeah,
then if you combine it with past data in your CRM,
it
even more.
initially it initially helps you just with that, right? Like to understand the full company picture, which what is going on inside your brief. Most of the time, CRM signals are also if this person changed their job to a certain degree, right? Or if they upskill with another like seat, for instance. This all of this combined, it helps you to understand, okay, what is the message? How should we leverage that account further? And of course, like different signals are also depending on a different part of the funnel, which I'll showcase in a bit. But why I want you guys to know of this is because of the fact that I don't want you to create messages like this, which are extremely casual. It's just someone sends you a connection request and then pitch slap like directly, no relevance, no explanation for the situations where I'm at. And there are a few more points actually, such as you're trying to sell cucumbers to the guy that sells cucumbers, which is also like a
Yeah,
no.
it
But
helps. It happens a lot. Too much.
exactly. And or you forgot about, I don't know, whenever you send something that you have this bracket like first name in, and it just doesn't look professional, it looks sloppy. And
Yeah.
actually, if you just focus on one signal, and this is the reason why I would highly recommend you to check out what Barry has inside of the cheat sheet and his whole formula, is because of the fact that relying on a simple signal can actually ignore the rest of the things that can help you to craft even better message. And I'll showcase a few examples in a second, or actually, here it is. Instead of going for very surface level stuff, what I do for my manual Signalbase outreach is that I name particularly the dedicated features that are associated with that vendor, for instance. And you see that level of personalization inside of the PS, right? You
Mhm.
have the 2 week window for the knowledge graph, which is something that they share. And I always try to be thought provoking, right? Because LLMs are not really thought provocative, if I would say it like this.
Bland,
And
just bland. Yeah.
exactly. Which by the time you just make it human, it leads to a response like the one below, which says, "Hey Georgie, happy to introduce you to our CTO," which is exactly what you need. Um, Now, okay, obviously it's nice to craft this and it's nice to see it, but how do you make it in a repeatable system for September, right? There are two ways. You either make it dependable on your ACV automated, and this is for lower ACV clients that can just receive a particular webhook around an evergreen event and set up a custom event. And then based on that, just craft a message that resonates quite nicely with the majority of the market. It happens, and it's a little bit different from just spraying and praying, because you do have this level of why me, why now, right? Or you go a little bit on a manual side of things and you really do ABM style, like what Barry shared. And in this case, I just sourced with our MCP like 17 startups, which got funded and now are hiring heads of marketing or other content related vendors. Content related people. And this is good for content related software, right? Like if you match the mental models. Now, I showed you guys how you can build this inside of your own system in order to knock on the door. But something that, funny enough, me and Barry started talking while preparing for this is like, what? Like, okay, you can knock on the door, but how do you follow up? Right? Like, how do you keep the thing going? Because, okay, it's not so linear, the customer journey. It happens that priorities shift and it's super annoying, right? And all of a sudden, you do need to look back and forth for different signals across the whole landscape yet again in order to know, oh, why did they drop this? What can we do a bit better in order to, get this deal moving yet again? And it's just a reality nowadays, right? People are swamped, there's so much noise. But whenever you get a signal down the line, you need to be able to leverage it to the fullest. Now, two examples. I'll start with this and I'll create another example that is not inside of a presentation because it just happened today. So the example in the presentation is the fact that I joined a in-person meetup from this very big vendor within the go-to-market space, right? And initially, what happened was that I picked up offline signals that were not mentioned by their team, by some of their users, and then just happened to be at the right place at the right time with me in order to share that information. Based on that, I crafted this email and I managed to book a call. So it's as simple as it is, nothing hardcore. You just bake the formula in, and because it's relevant yet again, the deal gets booked within another call.
Yeah. Also, yeah. If I can add something, one thing I had success with was just also mentioning something from a mentioning something in a job description that's very specific or related to your service. So I was reaching out to, or shows that you've done your homework. I think that's it. I was reaching out to a company that fit my ICP. They were scaling up outbound, and they were very using language something like, "We're very ambitious to grow internationally." And then I messaged like, "Hey, see you guys are scaling up and have ambitious plans, but you have a very small sales team. I'm curious how you're going to do that." And then he said, "Well, how do you know that? Let's book a meeting."
Yeah.
If you can sort of show that you've done your homework, people are also more open to meeting instead of the AI slop generic bullshit.
Certainly, like it's as simple as giving to someone who is extremely hungry some food, right? Like, we all know how if you haven't eaten, you're extremely hungry, as I love to say as a Gen Z person, and you get extremely moody. Well, by the time you eat, you become, a normal person, quote unquote. So yeah, it's absolutely the same thing with your signal-based outbound and with a follow-up methodology. Another example, just to give really briefly, I do know that another vendor wanted to start doing how do you call this? Different integrations, and then they dropped the conversations with us. A few months down the line, they just launched a few integrations with a few familiar faces, and I just said, "Hey, is it a better time now? Apparently, you're launching some integrations," and yeah, we just got in touch. So the last thing that I just wanted to mention outside of how to follow up, how to write your copy, is something that Barry mentioned, which is the CRM signals and how do you build a GTM brain that knows everything for everyone so your outreach stands out no matter at which part it is. And it's a simple example of the response that I got. And based on that, the system that you need is just three tools. You need a note taker that has an API or a straight up connector to Cloud Code that can transcribe your meetings end to end, right? So step number one. Step number two, you hook it to Cloud Code. And step number three, you connect it to your CRM like Attio, for instance. This is at least what I have. And I told that particular cloud session about the stages or the life cycle stages inside my CRM, how I set it up. So every time, whenever I have something, I like a conversation from my call or things like this, I just appoint it to the right life cycle stage, or it already knows about it. So it will ask me, should I go into the interactive stage? Should they book another call? Should they try the product? Are they converting? Like, what is going on? So just like that, having a proper CRM hygiene can help you a lot with your Signalbase engine. And truthfully, I think that's the end reaction of what Barry mentioned when it comes to having your Signalbase engine working properly. They just handing you the money, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about it on my side too.
Yes. Yeah. If you would like to receive the cheat sheet and the framework example, just send me a message on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And we will also forward the recordings to the people
Yeah.
who send me a message afterwards, actually before this
Sure.
webinar. So yeah, we will make sure to do so, guys.
Check if
Thanks.
there's some questions.
Yeah,
I don't think so. Yeah, thanks, Georgie. It was really fun to do
yeah,
to
likewise. And
chat
I hope,
together.
yeah, likewise. And I hope that people are going to have a successful summer. And in case you guys do, make sure to create a post about it. Say like, hey, this session helped a lot. And make sure to check out Barry's work because he definitely knows what he's talking about.
Sign up, and subscribe. Yeah, thanks, man.
All right. Have a good one,
Cheers.
everyone.
Cheers. Bye, 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 bye.